Hello and welcome to Become the Teapot. I'm Old Man Ian.
And so am I.
We're going to be diving back into the hugely inconsistent Fox Xmen film franchise for the fifth time since this podcast began, as we discuss 2017's Logan and compare it to Wolverine Volume 3 issues 66 to 72, plus the subsequent giant-size special, otherwise known as Old Man Logan. Shall we move on to Ian's egg hunt?
Oh, go on then.
Ian's egg hunt. Ian's egg hunt. Ian's egg hunt.
I'm not yoking you. So, here we are then, back in the world of Easter eggs in the X-Men universe. First one I picked up on was Wolverine's car reg on his limo, which is WER112.
Okay.
It could be a reference to two comics. I've not read them, so you might be able to point me in the right direction which comic it could be a reference to.
Okay.
The first one being Uncanny X-Men issue 112,
Right.
which all that I found out about it really was it's an issue where Magneto turns the X-Men into children.
Okay, yeah, ex-babies. Okay, I don't know what that would have to do with this storyline, but okay, what's the other reference?
There's children in the film. The other one is Wolverine 112.
That makes sense, right?
Which depicted like a lonely, guilt-ridden Wolverine where he lives apart from the X-Men. That one's probably more relevant to the film.
I would say so, yeah.
Than the children one. And then also in this film there are so many callbacks to previous films in the X-Men world. The motel that he meets X-23, that hotel is called Liberty Motel.
Right, okay.
Which got to be a callback to the final scene of X1.
The Statue of Liberty, which is also mentioned by Charles in this film.
It is indeed. And then in Wolverine's hideout, he's got a samurai sword on his wall, which has to be a callback to the previous film, because that was also directed by James Mangold.
Yes, yeah. In fact, isn't there a line in that film about someone predicts Wolverine's death?
Yeah.
And they say, you will die with your guts spilled out and your heart in your hand. Which is essentially what happens here. He ends up with his gut spilled out and Laura's hand in his, so his heart. Yeah. Which makes sense if they're directed by the same director. Yeah, some consistency there.
And then also, we all know that Logan enjoys his cigars.
We do.
And he stole some from a shop.
That's an Easter egg, is it?
Well, it's a callback to him smoking cigars.
It's just a thing that happened in the film, sure.
I'm calling it a callback.
Okay, fine. Is that all you got?
Yeah.
There's loads of X-Men comics in this one. I thought you'd have some about that. He picks them up, he shows them.
They're not real comics. They were drawn by artists who have worked on previous comics, but they're not real comics. There you go. There's an Easter egg.
That is quite a good Easter egg. But they are, they got characters recognisable. They got Sauron, who I realise I've been calling Sauron because I always thought it was like Saw, like a bird or like a dinosaur. But in actual fact, his name's Sauron because he's named after the villain from Lord of the Rings.
Why?
I'm guessing whoever was writing X-Men at the time was a fan of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but does that character have anything to do with Lord of the Rings?
I don't know, actually. I haven't read that issue where he's introduced, but I think he says that he took his name from the books. The character says that.
Hold on. You've not read that? I thought you'd read all comics.
I have not read all comics. No. I'm sorry I've misled you.
This podcast's a lie. This podcast is a lie. I quit. I'm leaving.
I didn't realise you were under that belief that I'd read all of the comics.
Well, on that bombshell...
Yeah.
Should we move on to the return of Ask the Teapot?
No, because we're on the conclusion next.
Okay. On that bombshell. No, you know what? Leave that in and let's go to the conclusion.